You ever feel your heart crack so quietly that nobody else hears it? That was me. I buried my husband of 42 years alone. Let me say that again. Alone. My son didn't stand next to me. He didn't hold my hand. He didn't even show his face. You know where he was? At his wife's birthday brunch, posting champagne selfies, while I was choosing a coffin. My name is Amelia. I'm 67 years old, and the day my son skipped his father's funeral for pancakes and mimosas was the day he stopped being a boy, because 3 days later, he called me asking for $200,000, and that's when I decided grief was the last thing he needed to worry about. The church smelled like lilies and old wood polish. I hated lilies. Frank hated lilies, but somehow that's what they filled the place with. People kept squeezing my hand. "Amelia, you holding up? You're so strong. Jason must be devastated." I forced a smile every time. Jason must be devastated. Oh, honey, Jason was posting Instagram stories of mimosas. My neighbor Carol leaned in and whispered, "Where's Jason? He parking the car?" I swallowed. My throat felt like broken glass. "No," I said quietly. "He's busy." Busy. That word tasted like betrayal. I had called him the night before. "Jason," I said, sitting at the kitchen table where Frank used to drink his coffee, "the service is at 11. You'll come early, right? Help me?" There was a pause. Then, "Mom, about that. I already knew. I can't make it." Silence. "Excuse me?" I asked. "It's Madison's birthday. Her family booked this thing weeks ago, non-refundable. You know how she is about birthdays." "You know how she is?" My husband was dead in the next room. "Jason," I said slowly, carefully, like I was speaking to a stranger, "your father raised you. He worked double shifts so you could play baseball. He sold his truck to pay your college tuition." "I know, Mom. Don't guilt trip me." Guilt trip? I felt something shift in my chest. "I'll visit the grave next week. Dad would understand." "No, your father would not understand." But I didn't say that because I was still his mother. "I see," I said, and I hung up. At the funeral, when it was time to say a few words, I stood up. My knees were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "Frank was a good man," I said. "He believed in showing up for your family, no matter what." A few heads turned. "I suppose that's a rare quality these days." And I sat back down. After the burial, I went home to an empty house. The silence hit harder than grief. Frank's recliner was still angled toward the television. His glasses were on the side table. I touched them, and I cried. Not the loud, dramatic kind, just quiet tears sliding down a woman's face who finally understood she had lost two men that week. One to death, one to selfishness. 3 days later, my phone rang. Jason. I let it ring twice. Then 3 times. Then I answered. "Hi, Mom." His voice was cheerful. Too cheerful. "How was the brunch?" I asked calmly. He hesitated. "It was good. Listen, I meant to call sooner. Things have been crazy." "Crazy. Right." I replied. "So, actually, I need to talk to you about something." "Of course you do." "I'm listening." He cleared his throat. "Madison and I are thinking of upgrading the house. Bigger place, better school district, but we're a little short on the down payment." There it was. The favor. "And?" I asked softly. "Well, Dad left you pretty comfortable, right?" My fingers tightened around the phone. "Your father isn't even in the ground a week, and you're calculating my bank account. We just need a small loan. Temporary. I'll pay you back. You know I always do." "No, Jason, you don't always do." Flashbacks hit me like lightning. The time we paid his credit card debt, the temporary loan for the failed business, the car we co-signed. Frank always said, "He's our son, he'll learn." But Frank isn't here anymore, and I am done raising a grown man. "How much?" I asked. 200,000. I laughed. Actually laughed. He sounded offended. "What's funny?" "Oh, nothing," I said sweetly. "Just thinking about how your father worked 42 years for that money." "Mom, don't start." "Start?" "Oh, honey, I haven't even started." "I'll think about it," I said. "Okay, but we kind of need an answer soon." "I'm sure you do." And I hung up. That night, I sat at the kitchen table again, only this time I wasn't crying. I was thinking. Jason didn't show up when it mattered, but now he wanted something from me. Funny how that works. I opened the drawer where Frank kept the important papers, the house deed, the investments, the life insurance, and something else, a document we'd signed 5 years ago, quietly, just in case. I ran my finger across the paper. Frank always did believe in planning ahead. Guess you were right, I whispered into the empty kitchen, because my son thought I was just a grieving old woman. What he didn't know, I was about to teach him the most expensive lesson of his life. The thing about grief, it sharpens you. You either crumble or you wake up. And at 67 years old, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee and my late husband's paperwork spread out like a battlefield map, I woke up. Jason texted the next morning. Jason, morning, Mom. Have you thought about it? The audacity of that heart emoji. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. Me. Come by tonight, 6 p.m. We'll talk. He replied instantly. Perfect. Love you. Love. Such an easy word to type. At exactly 6:17 p.m., because my son has never been on time for anything that didn't benefit him, Jason walked into my house like nothing had happened. Same confident stride, same expensive watch, same cologne. Madison trailed behind him in heels too high for my hardwood floors. Hi, Amelia, she said, air kissing near my cheek without actually touching me. She smelled like champagne and expensive perfume. I wondered if she had worn that scent to brunch. I wondered if she had posted selfies while I lowered my husband into the ground. Jason looked around the house. You haven't changed anything. It's been 6 days, I said calmly. He cleared his throat. Right. We sat at the dining table, the same table where Frank taught him multiplication, the same table where Jason once cried because he struck out at Little League. Funny how that boy disappeared. So, he said, leaning back, about the loan. Loan. Not help, not support. Loan. I've been thinking, I said slowly. Madison crossed her legs, impatient. We found a place already. It's perfect. Open concept, 4 bedrooms, great neighborhood. 4 bedrooms? For 2 adults and 1 toddler? You must be very excited, I said. We are, Jason said quickly. And this is an investment. Smart move. Smart move? Skipping your father's funeral for pancakes was a smart move, too? I folded my hands. You didn't come, I said quietly. Jason blinked. Mom, you didn't come. Madison sighed. Amelia, we talked about this. No, I said, looking directly at her. I talked, you justified. Silence filled the room. Jason rubbed his temples. We're not doing this again. Doing what? Acknowledging what you did? Your father waited by that window for 3 days before he passed, even when he could barely breathe. Jason looked uncomfortable. He kept saying, Is Jason on his way? That wasn't a lie. It was the last thing Frank asked me. Madison shifted in her chair. That's emotional manipulation. I laughed softly. No, sweetheart, that's reality. Jason stood up. Mom, I said I was sorry. You texted sorry. There's a difference. You chose brunch over burying your father. I chose my wife, he snapped. And there it was, the truth. You didn't choose. You prioritized. His jaw tightened. You don't understand marriage. Oh, I understand marriage. I stayed married 42 years, through layoffs, through cancer scares, through everything. I understand showing up, I said. Jason took a breath, clearly done with the emotional part. So, are you helping us or not? Straight to business. I reached into the folder beside me. Frank and I had set something up 5 years ago when Jason asked for that temporary $80,000 business loan that mysteriously evaporated. We met with a lawyer after that. Just in case. I slid the paper across the table. Jason frowned. "What's this?" "Read it." He scanned the page. Madison leaned in. His face changed. "Mom, what is this?" "It's a trust." Madison's eyes widened. "A trust?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Your father and I moved most of our assets into an irrevocable trust 5 years ago." Jason's voice sharpened. "Why?" "Because we realized something," I said gently. "You don't respect money you didn't earn." Silence. "The house?" he asked. "In the trust." "The investments?" "In the trust." "The life insurance?" "In the trust." His breathing got heavier. "So what does that mean?" Madison asked quickly. "It means," I met her eyes, "I cannot legally loan you $200,000. Jason slammed his hand on the table. "That's ridiculous! You're my mother!" "And you were his son." The words hit harder than I expected. He froze. "You did this on purpose." "No. We did this for peace." Madison stood up. "This is unbelievable! You're punishing us." "No," I replied calmly. "I'm protecting myself." Jason paced. "So that's it? After everything I've done?" I almost laughed again. "What exactly have you done, Jason?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "Exactly." Then I said something that changed everything. "The trust has conditions." He stopped pacing. "What conditions?" "If you want any early distribution," I paused, "you'll need to prove you can show up when it matters." Madison scoffed. "What does that even mean?" "It means," I said, standing now, steady and composed, "family isn't an ATM." Jason's face flushed red. "You're being petty." "No," I said quietly. "I'm being awake." He stormed toward the door. Madison followed, furious. But before he stepped out, he turned back. "You're choosing money over your son." I held his gaze. "No," I said softly. "You already taught me how that feels." And I closed the door. The house was silent again. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt strong. I walked into Frank's old office and sat in his chair. "Guess I finally learned," I whispered. "Because here's the truth nobody tells you about motherhood. There comes a day when loving your child doesn't mean rescuing them. It means letting them feel the consequences." And something told me Jason wasn't done. Because men who skip funerals for brunch don't walk away quietly when the money disappears. 2 days later, my phone rang at 11:48 p.m. Jason. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another call. Then another. By morning, I had 14 missed calls and one voicemail that made my blood run cold. "Mom, we have a problem." 14 missed calls. At my age, that number doesn't mean drama. It means emergency. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone like it might bite me. Jason had left one voicemail. I pressed play. His voice didn't sound confident anymore. Didn't sound smooth. Didn't sound like the man who skipped his father's funeral for bottomless mimosas. It sounded scared. "Mom, call me. Please. It's urgent." Please. Funny how that word shows up when money disappears. I waited an hour before calling back. Not to be cruel, but to breathe. He answered on the first ring. "Mom, thank God." "What happened?" I asked calmly. Silence. Then, "We might lose the house." "Ah, now we're talking." "Explain." He inhaled sharply. The deal fell through. The buyers backed out. We already put a non-refundable deposit on the new place, and Madison's dad can't help. Of course he can't. Madison's dad had opinions, not assets. And, I said, we're short. Like, really short. How short? He hesitated. $300,000. I almost admired the escalation. You start with 2, now we're at 3. Inflation hits fast when it's not your money. Why did the buyers back out? I asked. Another pause. Inspection issues. What kind of issues, Jason? His voice lowered. Foundation. Oh, foundation. You know what else collapses when the foundation cracks? Families. We already signed papers on the new house, he continued quickly. If we don't close, we lose the deposit, and we could get sued. And you're calling me, I said evenly, because you're my mom. There it is again, the title used like a credit card. Jason, I said softly, did you consider maybe slowing down? We can't slow down. Madison already told everyone about the new house, her parents, her friends. So this is about pride, not survival. You made a financial decision based on Instagram, I said. Don't do that. No, I replied. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore. He exhaled hard. Mom, please, I messed up, okay? I messed up. That was new. When did you realize that? I asked quietly. Yesterday. Yesterday. Not when your father died, not when you skipped his funeral, not when I said no. Yesterday, when the math stopped mathing. I drove to their house that afternoon, not to rescue, to observe. The place looked perfect from the outside, fresh paint, landscaping, that fake we made it glow. But when I stepped inside, I saw the cracks. Literally. Hairline fractures along the living room wall, a slight slope in the kitchen floor. Foundation. It always starts underneath. Madison stood there, in leggings and panic. Amelia, she said, forcing politeness, we're in a really tight spot. I looked around slowly. You've redecorated, she bristled. That's not the point. It usually isn't, I replied. Jason came down the stairs, eyes red. Mom, he said quietly, I should have come. There it was. Finally. Not shouted, not defensive, just honest. I studied his face. For the first time in years, he didn't look entitled. He looked like that little boy at the dining table again, the one who struck out and didn't know how to fix it. Why didn't you? I asked. He swallowed. Madison said it would ruin the vibe. Her whole family was flying in. She said your dad was already gone and birthdays are for the living. Birthdays are for the living. I felt something cold settle in my chest. And what did you think? I asked. He didn't answer. That was the answer. We sat at their kitchen island. Madison paced. We just need a temporary bridge, she insisted. Once we sell this place properly, we'll pay it back. I looked at her. You've already over-leveraged one property. She blinked. Over what? Exactly, I said. Jason rubbed his face. So what are you saying? I folded my hands. I'm saying I will not bail you out. Madison's mouth fell open. Are you serious? Yes. Jason looked crushed. But I am not your emergency fund. You have the money, Madison snapped. Yes, I said calmly, and your father earned every dollar. Silence. Then I leaned forward slightly. But I will offer something else. Jason looked up. What? I will help you hire a structural engineer, a real one. I will pay for the inspection. I will sit with you at the bank. I will help you negotiate. Madison scoffed. That's not enough. It's more than you deserve, I said quietly. Jason closed his eyes. Mom, you don't need money, I continued. You need discipline. Madison grabbed her purse. "This is unbelievable," she muttered. "You're enjoying this." No, I wasn't enjoying it. I was done preventing it. She stormed upstairs. Jason stayed seated. The house felt heavy. "I thought you'd always fix it," he said. "I did," I replied. That was the problem. Before I left, I walked through the hallway one more time. That crack in the wall caught my eye again. Small, but spreading. "You know what your father used to say?" I asked. Jason looked at me. "If you ignore a crack long enough, it becomes a collapse." His eyes filled. "Mom, are we talking about the house?" I held his gaze. "No." That night, I received a message from Madison. Not to me, but in a family group chat. She wrote, "Some people value money more than family." I didn't reply, because I knew something she didn't. The bank wasn't their only problem. When you rush into a purchase under financial strain, when your credit is already stretched, when your debt-to-income ratio is dancing on a cliff, the bank starts asking questions, and Jason had signed more than one risky paper. By Friday, they weren't just facing a lost deposit. They were facing foreclosure on the current house. And this time, there would be no trust fund shield, no bailout, no silent mother wiring money at midnight. Just consequences. Saturday morning, my phone rang again. Jason. His voice was different this time. Not angry, not entitled. Broken. "Mom, they're coming Monday." "Who?" I asked quietly. "The bank." And for the first time since Frank died, I felt something other than grief. I felt resolute. Because this wasn't about punishing my son anymore. It was about deciding what kind of mother I was going to be now. The kind who saves him again, or the kind who lets him finally grow up. Monday morning came in cold and gray. Funny how the sky always knows when something's about to fall apart. I pulled up outside Jason's house at 8:52 a.m. Not because he asked me to, because I wanted to see what happens when reality shows up in a suit and tie. 2 black sedans were already parked outside. The bank doesn't send sedans for good news. Jason opened the door before I knocked. He looked like he hadn't slept. His shoulders weren't squared anymore. His confidence wasn't polished. He looked small. "Mom," he said quietly. "I'm here to observe," I replied, "not to rescue." He nodded. That nod told me something had shifted. Inside, 2 men in gray suits sat at the dining table, folders open, documents spread out. Madison was pacing again, arms crossed tight like she was trying to hold her world together physically. One of the bankers looked up. "Mrs. Carter?" "Amelia is fine," I said calmly. He nodded politely. "We're here regarding the bridge financing and existing mortgage exposure." Madison rolled her eyes. "Can you just speak English?" Translation: you signed things you didn't fully understand. The banker kept his tone steady. "Your current home is leveraged at 87% of its value. With the inspection findings, that value has likely dropped. The deposit on the new property is non-refundable. If the purchase fails to close, the seller may pursue damages." Jason swallowed. "How bad?" he asked. The second banker slid a paper across the table. "In a worst-case scenario, you could lose both properties." Silence. Thick. Heavy. Real. Madison snapped first. "This is ridiculous. We were pre-approved." "Yes," the banker said calmly, "based on projected sale value and stable debt assumptions." Projected, assumptions. 2 words that don't survive contact with reality. Jason ran his hair through his hair. "So what do we do?" The banker looked directly at him. "You liquidate assets, cut expenses, negotiate, and stop adding risk." Madison scoffed. "So we just downgrade our life?" There it is. Not protect our family, not stabilize. Downgrade our life. I watched Jason's face carefully, because this was the moment. You either grow or you double down. After the bankers left, the house felt smaller. Madison turned on Jason immediately. "You need to fix this." "I am trying," he shot back. "No, you're panicking. That's not fixing." "I wouldn't be panicking if we hadn't rushed this." She froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" He hesitated. And for the first time since I'd walked in, he didn't defend her. "It means maybe we should have slowed down," he said quietly. Madison stared at him like he'd just betrayed her. "Oh, so now this is my fault?" "I didn't say that." "You don't have to." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I stood up. "This is where I leave." Jason looked at me quickly. "Mom, wait." "No," I said gently. "You two need to talk without an audience." Madison crossed her arms. "You're not helping." "I'm helping more than you realize." And I walked out. That afternoon, Jason came to my house alone. No Madison. That told me everything. He stood in my kitchen, staring at the same chair his father used to sit in. "I messed up," he said again. "Yes," I agreed calmly. "I thought I was building something bigger, better." "At what cost?" I asked. He looked down. "I didn't think Dad's funeral would matter that much." That one stung. "Funerals aren't for the dead, they're for the living." He nodded slowly. "I was scared to disappoint Madison." "And you weren't scared to disappoint me?" Silence. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I didn't think you'd leave." That hit deeper than anything else. "I didn't leave," I said. "I stopped catching you." He sat down heavily. "What if I lose everything?" "You won't," I said. He looked up surprised. "Because losing everything would require you to have learned nothing, and I don't believe that." He blinked. "Mom, if I walk away from the new house, Madison's going to lose it." "Lose what? The house or the image?" He didn't answer. That was answer enough. 3 days later, he made the call. He canceled the new purchase, lost the deposit. A 6-figure mistake. Painful. Public. Humbling. Madison didn't speak to him for 2 days. Her parents called him irresponsible. Friends whispered. Instagram posts stopped. Funny how silence replaces celebration when the money dries up. Friday night, there was a knock at my door. It wasn't Jason. It was Madison. Alone. Mascara smudged. Pride cracked. "Can we talk?" she asked. I let her in. She stood in my living room looking around like she'd never really seen it before. "You hate me," she said bluntly. "No," I replied. "I don't." "You think I'm selfish." I held her gaze. "I think you're young and you confuse attention with stability." Her lip trembled slightly. "We just wanted more." "More what?" I asked. She didn't know. That was the tragedy. Then she said something unexpected. "Jason hasn't been the same since the funeral." "Good. Grief should change you." "He keeps saying he chose wrong," she whispered. I felt my chest tighten. "That's something he'll have to live with," I said gently. She wiped her eyes. "Are you ever going to forgive him?" I thought about that for a long moment. "I already have," I said. Her head snapped up. "But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." Sunday morning, Jason came by again. He looked different. Quieter. Grounded. "I listed the car," he said. "The sports car?" I asked. He nodded. "And we're meeting with a contractor about the foundation." Progress. Not glamorous, not Instagram-worthy, but real. Then he did something that surprised me. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a printed photo. It was from years ago. Frank and Jason at a Little League game, both of them laughing. I forgot who he was, Jason said softly. And who were you? I asked. He looked at me. Someone who showed up. There it was. The crack in the wall had spread, but instead of collapsing the house, it might finally rebuild the foundation. That night, I sat in Frank's chair again. Maybe he's learning, I whispered. Because here's what nobody tells you about raising a son. You don't stop being his mother at 18. You just stop protecting him from himself. And sometimes, though, the lesson costs 6 figures. Sometimes it costs a funeral. But if it builds character instead of entitlement, it might be worth it. 2 weeks later, Jason called again. But this time, he wasn't asking for money. He was asking for something harder. Mom, will you come with me? Where? I asked. To Dad's grave. And for the first time since the day we buried Frank, I felt like my son was finally coming home.
Cemeteries don't care about your pride. They don't care about your income bracket, your square footage, your car, your curated social media life. They just sit there, quiet, waiting. I hadn't been back since the funeral. Couldn't. The image of standing alone beside Frank's casket was still too fresh. But when Jason asked, I didn't hesitate, because this wasn't about grief anymore. It was about growth. The sky was clear that morning. Too clear. Jason parked the car but didn't get out right away. His hands were tight on the steering wheel. You don't have to say anything perfect, I told him. He gave a small nod. I don't even know where to start. Start with the truth. We walked side by side through the rows of stones. When we reached Frank's grave, Jason stopped. Really stopped. Like the weight finally hit him. He stared at the headstone. Frank Carter, 1949, 2025. Beloved husband, devoted father. Devoted father. That word always gets me. Jason swallowed hard. I should have been here, he whispered. The wind carried it like a confession. I stepped back slightly. This wasn't my moment. It was his. He crouched down slowly. Dad, I messed up. His voice cracked. I thought I had time. That line right there? That's the lie we all tell ourselves. He let out a shaky breath. I thought I'd see you again. Thought I'd fix it later. Thought a brunch wouldn't matter. Silence. Then the truth finally broke through. I chose wrong. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Honest. Final. I felt tears slide down my cheeks, but I didn't interrupt. Because apology isn't about being heard, it's about being real. Jason pressed his hand against the headstone. You showed up for everything. Every game, every stupid school play, every broken heart. His shoulders started shaking. And I didn't show up for you. That's the sentence that changes a man. After a few minutes, he stood up. His eyes were red, but steady. I don't want to be that guy anymore, he said quietly. Then don't be, I replied. It's not that simple. No, I agreed. It's not. But it starts with decisions. He nodded slowly. I canceled the country club membership. I raised an eyebrow. That's new. He gave a faint, embarrassed smile. We're restructuring everything. Selling the car, fixing the house, actually fixing it. Good. Not patching. Fixing. We stood there in silence a little longer. Then he said something that hit deeper than anything else. You were scared to disappoint Madison, but you weren't scared to disappoint me. That's a hard truth to admit. Why? I asked softly. Because you've always loved me anyway. There it is. The curse of unconditional love. Sometimes your kids mistake it for permission. I placed my hand on his arm. Love doesn't mean no consequences. It means I believe you can do better. He nodded.
I want you to be proud of me again. I looked at him carefully. I never stopped loving you, I said. But pride? That's earned. He accepted that. No argument, no defensiveness, just growth. On the drive back, he didn't talk about money. He didn't talk about stress. He talked about Dad. Stories, little things. The time Frank made him mow the lawn twice because he missed a strip. The way he refused to let Jason quit baseball after one bad season. Dad always said, "Face it, don't dodge it." I smiled. He did. Jason looked out the window. I've been dodging a lot. Yes, I said. You have. A week later, Madison came over for dinner. First time since the bank situation. No designer heels this time, no forced charm. Just quiet. She helped set the table. She asked about Frank. She listened. Actually listened. Growth doesn't always look traumatic. Sometimes it looks like humility. Halfway through dinner, Jason cleared his throat. Mom, I talked to the lawyer. About what? I asked. I want to be removed as a potential trustee on the account. I studied him. That's not necessary. I know, but I need to know I'm building something myself, not waiting on something. There it is. That's the shift. Not entitlement, responsibility. Madison reached for his hand, and for the first time, it didn't feel like she was steering him. It felt like she was standing beside him. Later that night, after they left, I sat in the quiet house again. But this silence, it felt different. Lighter. Frank's chair creaked as I sat down. You saw that, didn't you? I whispered. Because grief doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. And sometimes it builds something stronger than what broke. 3 months later, the foundation in their house was repaired. They downsized expenses. They stopped chasing bigger. They started building steady. And one Sunday afternoon, Jason showed up at my door with a toolbox. What's that for? I asked. He smiled slightly. You said the porch railing was loose. He didn't text. He didn't send money. He showed up. And that's worth more than any check he could have asked me to write. But here's the thing about growth. It gets tested. 6 months after the funeral, Jason got a job offer. Higher salary, different city. Madison was excited. Bigger market, bigger opportunities. And when he came to tell me, I saw the crossroads in his eyes. Again. Mom, he said carefully, we'd be 4 hours away. I nodded slowly. And I don't want to disappear again. That right there is the difference between a boy and a man. You won't, I said calmly, if you choose not to. He exhaled. This time, the decision wouldn't be about brunch, it would be about balance. And he finally understood something his father tried to teach him his whole life. Success without presence is empty. Before he left that night, he hugged me, longer than usual. I'm sorry, he said again. I know, I replied. And for the first time since that awful phone call about the birthday brunch, it felt real. Because sometimes the most expensive lesson a parent can give is letting their child feel the weight of their choices. And sometimes that weight turns into backbone. People think the big moment is the funeral, or the bank, or the blow-up argument in the kitchen. It's not. The real moment? It's the quiet decision nobody claps for, the one that tells you who you are when nobody's watching. Jason came over on a Thursday evening. No drama, no panic. Just him. He sat at my dining table, the same table where everything had unraveled months ago. I got the offer in writing, he said. I nodded. Congratulations. It was a good offer. Senior position, bigger salary, growth potential. 4 hours away. New city, new start. Madison was excited. I could see it in the way he said her name. But there was something else in his eyes, too. Wait. I haven't accepted yet, he said. Why not? He hesitated. Because last time, I chose what looked good. Fair. And this time? I asked. I'm trying to choose what's right. Now we're talking. He leaned back in the chair. If we move, it sets us up long term. Better schools, bigger network, more stability. He paused. But if we move, I don't want to disappear. You won't, I said calmly. Distance doesn't create absence. Decisions do. He let that sit. I keep thinking about Dad, he said quietly. He turned down that management job once. I smiled faintly. Yes, he did. Jason looked surprised. You remember? I was there, I said. He said no because it would have kept him on the road 3 weeks a month. Jason swallowed. I didn't understand that back then. No, I replied gently. You didn't. He looked around the house. You're going to be okay if we move? That question meant more than he knew, because once upon a time he would have assumed I'd adjust. Now he was asking. I'll be fine, I said honestly. I built a life before you. I'll build one after you. He nodded slowly. But, I added, if you move, you commit to showing up. He met my eyes. Birthdays and funerals? Especially funerals. A small, sober smile touched his face. A week later, he made the decision. They accepted the job. But they didn't upgrade. They rented first. Smaller place, lower risk. Madison wasn't thrilled at first, but she adjusted. Because when a man stands firm in calm confidence, it's different than panic ambition. And Jason was different now. The day they moved, he handed me something. A folder. What's this? I asked. Our financial plan. I blinked. You don't have to show me that. I know, but I want to. Inside was a detailed budget, savings goals, emergency fund plan. No shortcuts, no gambling on projected values, just steady. You did this? I asked. Yeah, with a financial advisor. Growth looks good on him. Before he left, he walked into Frank's old office. He stood there quietly for a moment. I'm not waiting until it's too late again, he said softly. Then he turned to me. Mom, I don't want anything from the trust. I studied him carefully. That's not necessary. I know, he repeated, but I need to build without expecting it. That's when I knew the lesson had landed. After they drove away, the house was quiet again, but this silence didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. I walked to the drawer where the trust documents were kept. I took them out, ran my fingers across Frank's signature. We created that trust because we were afraid our son would drown in entitlement. But now, he was learning how to swim. 3 months passed, then 6. Jason called every Sunday, not rushed, not distracted. He visited once a month, sometimes with Madison, sometimes alone. And when he visited, he didn't sit on the couch scrolling his phone. He fixed things. He asked questions. He stayed present. That's what showing up looks like. On the first anniversary of Frank's death, Jason arrived early. He brought flowers. Not lilies. He remembered. We stood at the grave together again. No dramatic apologies this time, just quiet respect. After a few minutes, he said, I get it now. Get what? I asked. Why you didn't bail me out. I looked at him. Why? Because if you had, I would have learned nothing. Exactly. That night, back at my house, I made a decision. Not out of guilt, not out of fear, but out of clarity. I called the lawyer the next morning, not to unlock the trust, to update it. Jason would remain a beneficiary, but the trustee would be his daughter, my granddaughter, with clear stipulations about education, responsibility, and stewardship. Generational growth, not generational entitlement. When I told Jason, he didn't argue. He smiled. That makes sense, he said. No defensiveness, no greed, just understanding. Here's the thing about being a mother at 67. You realize your job isn't to protect your child from consequences, it's to protect their character from decay. Jason skipped his father's funeral for a birthday brunch, and for a while I thought I had lost him. But sometimes the worst decision someone makes becomes the moment that rebuilds them. One evening, almost a year after everything happened, Jason stood on my porch again with that toolbox. "Railing loose again?" I teased. He grinned. "No, just checking." He hugged me. Strong, steady. "I'm not disappearing again," he said. I know. And this time, I believed him. Because here's the truth. Money can save a house, but consequences save a soul. And I'd rather raise a son who shows up late and learns than one who never learns at all. Frank would have understood that. And now, so does Jason.